Hey, it's Dave here. In this video, I'm going to guide you through everything you need to get started with ESPHome, from installing it, creating your first device, flashing it, adopting it into Home Assistant, and even how to properly erase or delete a device if needed. I'll walk you through the interface, break down what all the YAML actually means, show how to install components like buttons or switches, and share a few helpful tips along the way. By the end of this video, you'll have a solid understanding of how ESPHome works, and you'll be confident enough to start building your own smart automations. So what is ESPHome? ESPHome is an open source firmware framework that makes it easy to create custom firmware for popular Wi-Fi enabled microcontrollers like ESP32 or ESP8266. Instead of writing code in the Arduino IDE and dealing with C++ and endless library installations, ESPHome lets you build devices using simple YAML files. No coding, no dependency headaches. With ESPHome, you can create custom smart home devices using simple YAML configuration files, integrate seamlessly with Home Assistant for a unified smart home experience, control and monitor your devices using multiple interfaces like the Web API or MQTT, automate your home with powerful on-device automations, and update your devices wirelessly using OTA. No cables or physical access needed. ESPHome handles all the complicated parts behind the scenes so you can focus on what really matters most, building your smart home exactly how you want it. Let me show you how to get ESPHome up and running so you can start building your own smart devices. To install ESPHome, if you go to Settings, then go to Add-ons, and if you select Add-on Store, then do a search for ESPHome, then select ESP Device Builder, go ahead and click Install. Once ESPHome is installed, go ahead and click Start. Enable Watchdog, that just means if it crashes it will restart. And then check Show in Sidebar. And then you should see here, ESP Builder is now showing over here. This is the ESPHome Dashboard, the main builder page where you manage all your devices. In the bottom right corner, you've got the green plus New Device button. This is where you start creating a new ESP configuration from scratch. At the top, you'll see Update All. This lets you apply updates to all devices at once. And what that really means is, if a device's firmware is out of sync with your current version of ESPHome, like after an ESPHome update, it may need to be recompiled and reflashed to stay compatible. If you skip this, there's a chance that over time those devices could stop working properly due to version mismatches. And don't worry, when devices do need updating, you'll also have the option to update them one by one if you'd rather not update everything at once. Now, if you've previously flashed a device using the web installer or ESPHome Web, but haven't yet added it here, you may see a message like Discovered for Devices with a Show button. Clicking that lets you take control and adopt the devices into your ESPHome dashboard. And finally, at the top, next to Update All, you've got Secrets. Let me show you what that is and why it's important. And just to clarify, this is not the same as the Home Assistant's secrets.yaml file. This one is specific to ESPHome and is used to securely store things like Wi-Fi credentials and API keys for your ESPHome devices. Now this is the secrets.yaml file where I've stored things like my Wi-Fi name and password. ESPHome automatically creates this secrets.yaml file for you the first time you add a device. It usually adds your Wi-Fi name and password under Wi-Fi underscore SSID and Wi-Fi underscore password, as shown here. But there's a pro tip. If your home setup includes Wi-Fi boosters or mesh systems that creates multiple SSIDs like Home Wi-Fi and Home Wi-Fi 2, it's a good idea to add both of these into your secret files, which you can see I've done here in this demonstration. Now, when you are referencing a secret file in your YAML, for example, let's say Wi-Fi underscore SSID, you will prefix exclamation mark secret followed by the secret name. So for example, Wi-Fi underscore SSID is going to look like that. Now, just to be clear, with the secrets file, this is not encrypted. It's basically just a text file where you can save all your sensitive logins or keys. But the benefit is your YAML will reference the files from the secret. So if later on you decided to share your YAML on a community forum, you're not exposing any sensitive data because it's just going to say secret followed by the secret name. Once you've added a device into ESPHome, if you click on these three dots, you'll see you're presented with these options. Validate will just check the code and look for syntax errors. Install will give you the option to flash the board, and you're either going to achieve this wirelessly, which will be over the air. Plug into this computer is when you've got the device connected via USB to the machine I'm actually on at the moment. Plug into the computer running ESPHome Device Builder. So for example, if I've got the ESP32 board plugged into the host which is running Home Assistant, I could then go onto a web browser on another machine, but I would select that third option. And then manual download will just compile and download the bin file, and you can continue to use ESPHome Web or another tool like ESPFlasher. Show API key, as you could probably expect. It will just show the API key which you can copy. Download YAML, that will literally just download the YAML file. This might be useful if perhaps you're sharing your code. Rename hostname or rename the hostname of the device, but it won't rename the entity name. Clean build files will essentially recompile the code and then allow you to reflash it again later. This might be useful, for example, if you've recently flashed a board and something's not working correctly. The first part of your triaging should really be clean build files and then see if that makes no difference, and then move on to something else if that doesn't work. Download ELF file is for debugging purposes. And the final option, as you suspect, this will delete the device from ESPHome, but it will not fully remove it. Now that we've looked around the ESPHome interface, let me show you the two main ways to prepare and flash your ESP board for the first time. Option 1, which is what I recommend, is to click the plus new device here in the ESPHome Dashboard. Follow the steps to name it and choose your board and let ESPHome generate the YAML file for you. Once you've done that, you can download the .bin file and flash it using the Web Flasher tool. Option 2 is what I'll demonstrate after showing option 1, but just a heads up, this isn't my preferred method and you'll see why when I walk you through the steps. I'll be using ESPHome Web, also connecting the device over USB, but this time using the Prepare for First Time Use option to set it up. Alright, let me show you option 1, which is what I recommend for most setups. Now, before you go ahead and add your device and start flashing it, it's important to make sure you've got the appropriate drivers installed. Otherwise, you may encounter a message like this. I will add a link in the description for these drivers. You can also tell whether the driver is installed or not, because if you go into Device Manager, you'll notice a warning showing under Other Devices. And once you've got the appropriate device installed, it should be looking healthier and something like this example screenshot. If you go ahead and click New Device, and then from here we're going to click Continue. I'm now going to give this a name and then click Next. And then for board type, I'm just going to select the top answer, which is ESP32. And then if you just click Skip at this section, and you should now see the device here, which is showing offline because we haven't yet finished configuring it. I'm now going to go into Edit. Now this is the initial YAML that ESPHome creates for you when you set up a new device. I'm just going to go over some of the key values. Name. This is the device's internal name used by ESPHome and on your network. It must be lowercase with no spaces. Friendly name. This is what shows up in Home Assistant. Feel free to use spaces and capital letters to make it more readable. ESP32. This defines the type of chip you're using and the framework. In most cases, it will be ESP32Dev with the Arduino framework, which works for most boards. Logger. This enables logging so you can see the output in the ESPHome Dashboard. Super useful for debugging and tracking device activity. API. This allows your ESP32 device to communicate directly with Home Assistant over the native API instead of MQTT. Bonus, it supports encryption with the key shown here. OTA. This enables over-the-air updates, meaning you can update your device wirelessly. You can also set a password here to secure it. Wi-Fi. This is where you define the Wi-Fi network your device should connect to. You often use secrets here to keep things clean and secure. AP. Inside Wi-Fi, this sets up a fail-back hotspot. So if your main Wi-Fi fails or the password is wrong, your device creates its own temporary Wi-Fi network. And with Captive Portal, this works with the fallback AP to give you a setup page in your browser. If you connect to that temporary hotspot, it opens up a web page where you can reconfigure the Wi-Fi. We're now going to come out of this. And if you click the three dots, we're going to select Install. Now, because this is the first time we're flashing a device, we're going to have to download the bin file and connect it to our computer. Wirelessly won't be a choice just yet. If you select the choice plug into the computer, and after about 30 seconds, it's going to compile the image and save it into a bin file. Once that's finished, you're then going to go ahead and select Download Project. And then just save it. You should see something here where it downloads the file. It's possible the antivirus might prompt you a warning, and I'm just going to go ahead and select Keep. Now you're going to select Open ESPHome Web. Now before you click Connect, disconnect the ESP board. It will make sense in a second. At the moment, you can only see one device showing, but it's possible in your environment it might show several. Now I'm going to physically connect the ESP board via USB, and now it's immediately obvious which one it is because it wasn't there earlier. Had I left this connected and then gone to this section, I may have several devices, and your guess will be as good as mine as to which one it is. I'm now going to select the correct one and select Connect. We're going to choose Install because we've already prepared and downloaded the bin file. Then select Choose File and browse to the location where the bin file is saved. And just before you click Install, you may need to press the boot button on your ESP board, otherwise it will be stuck in a loop saying connecting. This is looking good because it shows erasing. Once that's finished flashing, you can click Close. And then you can just close that tab. Close that window as well. And now you can see the device is showing online, and if I click into logs, it should show me the IP details as well. I'm going to go ahead and click Close. And if you want to make any further changes, you can now go into Edit, change the YAML here, and then later save and install wirelessly over the air. One more thing you also need to do is head over to Settings, then go to Devices and Services, and you'll also need to add this device which is discovered. Now before I click Add, because I haven't added any other devices yet, you'll notice under Configured, it doesn't show ESPHome, and that's because we have no devices added. So I'm going to go ahead and click Add, then click Submit. I'm just going to click Finish and not specify a location. And now you should see you've got ESPHome showing here. And I can currently see I've just got that one device which I'm going to click into. At the moment it doesn't really have any options because I haven't added any sensors or buttons, so it's pretty plain. If I just go back one step, another thing you can do if you click on these dots, if you later decided to rename the device, this is where you'd do it. You'd click Rename, give it another name, and then go ahead and click OK. Now I'm going to show you the second option of adding an ESP device via the ESP browser, but this time using Prepare for First Time Use. If you go ahead and select New Device, this time we're going to select Open ESPHome Web. And again, before we click Connect, what I would do is initially have the ESP board disconnected. Go ahead and click Connect. And at the moment I can only see one port, but in your environment you may have several. Now I'm going to reconnect the ESP board. And now it's immediately obvious which one it is because it's the new one that's just appeared. You can click on that, click Connect. And now I'm going to select Prepare for First Time Use. Then click Install. And you may have to press the boot button on your device if it doesn't do anything. In this case it appears to be working, but otherwise it would just be stuck in a loop saying connecting. Once that's finished, it should show configuration installed, and then just click Close. If you do receive a message like this, I'm just going to click Close and give it another shot. So I'm just going to click Prepare First Time Use again. click Install. Click Close to configuration installed. And you're going to wait for it to reconnect. And it should be asking you to connect to the Wi-Fi. Click on that. I'm just going to select the appropriate wireless, put in my password and select Connect. And then if you click Visit Device, it's going to take you to the web interface. You can see it's got an IP address and we know it's online. So this is looking good. We can close that tab and we can also close this tab and then go back into the ESPHome main page. Now you're going to want to go to Settings, then go to Devices and Services. And then you should see another device which has been discovered, which is this one here. So that's looking good. Click Add, then Submit, and click Finish. And then you can also see under Configured, you've got this ESPHome is now showing. Had you already had devices, this would be here anyway, but because it's my first device, I've now got that which I can click into. Now I'm going to go back into ESPHome Builder. Now when you click Show to list discovered devices, one of these should be that new device I've flashed, but it seems to be a hit and miss as to when it actually works. If you are running into this problem, what I found has worked for myself is if you just restart ESPHome. So I'm going to quickly give that a shot. Go to Settings, then go to Add-ons. Look for ESPHome Device Builder. And we're just going to give it a restart. Now we're going to go back into ESPHome Builder. And you should see that's looking promising. That did say 4 earlier and now it's showing 5. If I go to Show, now I can see that new device. So we can now take control. It's then going to give you the option to give it a new name. I'm just going to put ESP Test. Then you can click Take Control. Now this is the part which I find a bit odd, is even though we've already entered the wireless details on the web interface, if you click Install, it's going to fail on you. You're going to see this message and it's basically because it needs to know the SSID and password. If you go into Edit, and you'll see here it doesn't have the Wi-Fi details which I'm going to enter. So I'm just going to paste in those secret details. Now I'm going to click Save, then click Install. Now because it's already been flashed once, we can now choose the wireless option. So I'm just going to wait for that to finish. And that's looking good. And you can see the IP details are here. Another thing that I do find a bit misleading is the word stop. It really should be called close because all it actually does is just close the window. So don't be afraid to click on that. And I'm just going to hit the X to close that configuration. And now we're back into the ESPHome and you can see that device is now showing online. Now in order to erase your device, you need to have Python installed on your machine. If you head over to the following website, go to Downloads, and then select Python and download it to an appropriate location. Once you've done that, you're then going to browse to the folder where you've downloaded it and then open it. Now when you are installing it, I'll just warn you, make sure you check Add Python exe to path. If you don't do that, what will happen is when you go to the pip install part, it's going to throw an error at you. Once that's installed, you can just click close. And now you're going to open up command and type pip install ESP tool. And then to erase a device, depending on which board you have, use one of the following shown in the screen, and it should look like this when it runs. Now there's a handful of errors you may encounter when using these commands. If you run the erase flash command and you get this message about Python is not installed, that's, as you've guessed, you need to install Python. If you get this other message where you run the same command and it says no module named ESP tool, it's because you haven't run the pip install ESP tool command yet. And the final error is if you run the pip install ESP tool and you get this pip is not recognized as an internal or external command, it's because you didn't check the box to add python.exe to the path when installing. If you are having this error, just go back, uninstall Python, reinstall it again and check that box and then repeat those steps and you should be good. Now to delete a device, you're going to need to go into Settings, then go to Devices and Services, and then look for ESPHome. And you're going to click on the three dots for the device you want to remove and select delete. Then just click delete again. Now you're going to go back into ESPHome Builder and you're just going to remove that YAML file and click delete. Then click delete again. And the last part is you're going to restart Home Assistant. If you don't do that, you may find a device might still show here under discoverable. So I'm just going to give it a restart. Just go to Developer Tools, restart, and then restart Home Assistant and wait for it to come back. Once that's restarted, the device should be successfully erased and removed from your environment. Now for a little bonus section, I'm going to show you 3 extra features that are really handy once you've got the basics working. First, how to use substitutions to make the YAML look cleaner and easier to update. Second, how to connect your device to multiple Wi-Fi networks so it can fall back to a backup one if one goes down. And third, how to add all the components you need to make a servo work. This includes the output, the servo itself, a number component to control it with a slider bar, and a switch so you can trigger it off or on. We're going to start off by going into Edit. And this is currently just showing the standard info, which I've explained earlier, for a newly created device. Now I'm going to add some substitutions so you can get an understanding of how they work. The way you define a substitution is at the top of the file, and you make sure the substitution key is on the left with no indentation, and each variable is indented underneath with 2 spaces. So I'm going to add a substitution for this particular section where it's got the name and the friendly name. I'm just going to paste substitutions here, then press enter, and you can see it's already got 2 indentations to the right. And now I'm just going to give those substitutions a name. So the substitution name is just name, and the substitution friendly name is friendly_name. And we're now going to change this part so it's going to reference this substitution. And the way you're going to reference your substitution is by using the dollar symbol and then put the substitution name within the open and closed curly brackets. is now going to look like this. So this part here where it's got dollar open curly bracket, name close curly bracket, is basically calling this part, which is this value, and then you're going to do the same for this section here, which I've done. The thing I like with substitutions is it allows you to have all the values set at the top of the code, and important things like maybe pin outputs or certain keys. And that way you can sort of set your code so that you don't have to edit anything underneath. So you can just have the substitutions at the top, so it's very clear what needs changing. And it might also be useful if you're having some kind of a template structure for when you're using it again afterwards. I'm now going to show you how to reference multiple Wi-Fi SSIDs and passwords. So if a device fails to connect to the first one, it will automatically connect to the second. The part you're going to need to make the changes is under Wi-Fi key. You're going to need to add a networks key under Wi-Fi. And the Wi-Fi SSID and password is then going to need to be shifted 2 indentations to the right with a dash. So it should look like this. And now I'm going to repeat the same, but also add my second Wi-Fi SSID and password. So it's going to look like this. And these, as you've probably imagined, are pulling it from the secrets file, which I showed you earlier. I'm now going to add some components to make a servo work. This will include the output, the servo itself, a number component to control it with a slider bar, and a switch so I can trigger it off or on. To add a servo to ESPHome, if you head over to this following web page, and you'll see here it's already given you some example code which you can more or less just copy and paste with some minor tweaks. One example being you'll have to reference the correct pin number. I'm just going to go back to ESPHome, and here I'm just going to paste the servo and output values with some tweaks where I've referenced the pin number and I've just given it a different ID. The next thing we're going to want to do is add an input number. And if I go back to the ESPHome page and I scroll all the way down, you'll see once again they've also given you some sample code to add an input number, which you can more or less just copy and paste this entire section. I'm going to go back to the ESPHome portal and I'm going to paste a variation that I've made myself, which is just going to go here. And the last part we're going to need to do is add a switch. And once again, from the ESPHome web page, they've given you some really helpful templates that you can work on, that you can more or less just copy and paste, which is here. I'm going to go back to the YAML, and I'm just going to paste in a sample switch template that was based off that code I showed you. One of the changes I have made is you'll see here it's got a precise number of 54. The reason I've done that is because I'm using a Mailbox model and I want this flap to go directly up at a precise location, and I've been tinkering around and I find 54 to minus 52 seems to be the sweet spot, which is why I've got those precise numbers just showing here. Once those values have been added, I'm then going to go ahead and flash the board. This time I'm going to flash it wirelessly because it's already initially been flashed. I'm just going to click Save, then I'm going to click Install, choose Wireless as the option, and just wait for it to finish compiling and flashing. And that is now successfully flashed. So I can click stop just to close that window. And then just click the X to come out. Now that that board has been flashed, I'm just going to show you the Servo in action. If you go to Settings, then go to Devices and Services, then go to ESPHome, and this is it, Demo ESP32, so I'm going to select that. And you can see here I've got the switch and I've got the slider bar, which is currently set at -52. I'm just going to enable a second camera so you can see the servo. So here is my kind of US style mailbox. And I'm just going to turn the switch off and on. And you can see there it pops up as if to say, you've got mail. Then I'm going to turn it off and then it goes back down again. So you've got the on for you've got mail and off for you haven't. And the slider bar was really so I could figure out the settings, because -52, as I mentioned earlier, was the sweet spot. If I adjust it to the left, it's kind of not in the right place. And if I go to the other extreme, it's a little bit too far forward, which is why I found that -52 and 54 was what worked. And that's what this does. You can see there it's at one setting and there it's at the other. And that's it. You're now fully set up with ESPHome and ready to start building your own smart devices and automations. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up. And if you're into Home Assistant, smart home projects, or just like seeing tech made easy, consider subscribing for more videos like this. If you've got any questions, stuck on a step, drop a comment below or join our community on Discord. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.